Good day, good day, good day, and welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown. Yes, we're in July. Yes, we're still producing hockey podcasts because that's how much we enjoy it. We love it, and there's always things to talk about around the Calgary Flames and the hockey universe. I am your host, John Yusuf, and of course, alongside me, as always, from flamesnation.ca, Mr. Robert Munich. How are we today, Robert?
I'm doing good. I'm gonna throw like a little rant, or I want to get a little debate going here.
Sweet.
To kick off the episode. It has nothing to do with the Flames. So I'm sitting here, I'm working from home, and I got like TSN and Sportsnet going on, and it's like early afternoon. All they show are like misplays of the month, misplays of the week. Right now on TSN they have the top 10 mascot moments, and I'm like, Can these like $1 billion companies not put together a lineup of sports talk, like Canadian sports talk for their networks? Like, Bell and Rogers are both worth billions of dollars. Can they not invest just a little bit in their like daytime programming? Like, you know what I mean? Like the sports talk on like these major networks on TV is just non-existent in Canada right now.
I don't understand why they went away from putting a small camera in your radio studios and just doubling up. Like it's that simple for an hour or two a day. There's also, I would like to rant about them not just show other sports. There's always a sport going on somewhere around the world, or replay a big sporting event. Like we just had the Open Championships. Why not play the last round again for an hour or so on TV for those who might not have caught it on Sunday? Like there's things to do rather than misplays of the month. Sportsnet's really bad for that too. Like it's misplays of the month 9 times in a row. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that 9 times in a row.
Can you not come up with more creative content than that?
Yeah.
Like it's just it's awful. And like these companies have so much money to invest in this stuff, and they're like shrinking their sports media departments. If anything, they should be expanding them. And you look at like media rights have never gone for higher amounts of money. The interest in sports from a fan perspective and a content perspective has never been more popular. But yet all these companies, they just keep like cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. And it's really affecting their programming. I like your idea. Just simulcast like some of the radio broadcasts. Or like create your own show, like Sportsnet had Tim and Sid back in the day. Like create a couple of those throughout the day. Like I just don't understand why they're not doing this.
Yeah, Bob McCown used to be on TV every day. Like you didn't have to be in Toronto radio area to get him. Like what? And he was good.
He was really good.
Why not use, like, I know it's summertime, so your hockey insiders are out of there, but why not do Blair and Barker earlier in the day? Why not do something for the Blue Jays, have a second show? Why not have someone who's, right now is a great time to start pumping up NFL coverage. Like training camps start tomorrow for everybody. Right. So like, why don't you start pumping those out? Start doing shows like that. Like you have your fantasy football gurus that work for Sportsnet. I hear them on the radio all the time. Why not pump a show of that out a week? Like on your networks. Like there's lots of things they can do on these networks. It's just easier to have one intern produce a crappy little video of here's the top 30 plays of the month.
Yeah.
And replay it 14 times a day. And it's stupid.
Yeah, the direction of sports media is from a traditional broadcast perspective is going in the wrong direction right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame because I love sports media, right? Like that's why we do podcasts. Like I was going to study broadcasting. Just you have all these great people, all these great minds talking on Twitter or Instagram and stuff, where they're chit-chatting back and forth. Like there'd be excellent sports programming guys out there. Just unfortunately, it's gone the other direction. Like, and that's why it's crappy programming. So it's stupid. It's laziness is what it really is, to be honest.
Yeah, and cheap. They're cheap.
Yeah, billion-dollar companies that can't afford to put forth a product because, well, they just don't want to. Like it's greed as well. Money talks, and it's all about greed. I hate it.
Anyway, Calgary Flames time.
What's not stupid is the play of Nazem Kadri last year for the Calgary Flames. Let's kick it off with Nazem Kadri. There's been a lot of rumors online, social media, around what the Flames should do with number 91. Do they keep him? Should they trade him? There's been rumors of him to Toronto. Montreal rumors were around last week on social media. Fans throwing potential trades every which direction. Some are absolutely hilarious. Some are very intriguing. Robert, where do you land on Nazem Kadri and what the Flames should do with this guy moving forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because realistically, like if we're going to talk about what we think the Flames are going to do, I think it's pretty clear that they're going to hold on to Nazem Kadri for this season.
Yeah,
because of Craig Conroy's direction, because of his strategy with this organization, which is remain competitive, try to make the playoffs while infusing some young players into your lineup. And if you take Nazem Kadri away from the Calgary Flames, they're pretty much screwed. I mean, where are you going to get those 35 goals from on this roster? Like you're not going to replace that. So if they were to trade him, it would be because, it'd probably be around the deadline because they're not even close to making the playoffs, and maybe they'll explore a trade then. But if it were up to fans, if we're up to armchair GMs like you and I think the play would be to seriously look at trading him. You take a look at him. He's going to be 35 years old to start next season. He's coming off a career year in terms of goals scored on a team that struggled to score goals. His value is never going to be higher than it is right now. Mm-hmm. And, Craig Conroy always talks about asset management and getting lots for your players. And from an asset management standpoint, it makes nothing but sense to move on from Nazem Kadri right now. The guy scored 35 goals last year. He's going to be 35 years old. He's got 4 years remaining on his deal. What happens next year if things start to go downhill, if Father Time starts to catch up with him? Mm-hmm. Well, then your value just completely diminishes, kind of like it did with Rasmus Andersson last year. So I think the smart thing to do would be to trade him at his absolute peak value. Try to get as much in return for him as possible. There's so many teams out there that desperately need a Nazem Kadri on their team. And, he just doesn't fit the contention window of this team. Realistically, you want the Flames to contend 3 to 5 years from now. And by then, Kadri will be 38 to 40 years old. So in my opinion, it makes sense to trade him, but it's not because, we don't like him or we don't think he's an effective player. It's because he is an effective player. And it's because he is coming off a career year. Trade him while his value is high. That's kind of the way I look at it, but I just don't see the Flames doing that personally.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you, Robert. Like, Father Time is coming for this guy, whether it's next season, whether it's 2 seasons, whether it's halfway through next season, it's coming. And it's going to come hard for a guy like Nazem Kadri just based on the way he plays. Like, you're counting on this guy, if you're keeping him, to replicate a career high next year with 35 goals at 35. Like, I'm 41. I know what it's like to be 35, and I'm not as quick at 35 as I was at 25. It's just not even close. And so you do slow down. Your body takes longer to recover. And to try to replicate things back-to-back years like this for a guy of his age, now, he could potentially do it. Absolutely. I'm not putting it past Nazem. He's a smart guy. He knows how to play. He takes care of himself. There's a reason he's been in the league as long as he has. And the Flames do need a veteran like Nazem Kadri around to help this young roster, these budding players, like whatever Frost or Zary or these guys want to be in the league. They need a guy like Nazem Kadri to pull them along. Where I am at with this as well is you have 2 centers very similar to this. Michael Backlund also extremely getting up there in age, and Father Time's coming for him as well. You've already seen him slow down. You can debate me all you want on that, but he's not the Backlund of 5 years ago. He just isn't. And so you have 2 of these guys that can pull this team along here, but you're asking 2 35-plus centermen to be your cornerstones of your forward group, and it's just not viable for long-term success, in my opinion. You might hit a bit of streak here, a bit of luck, and things might go your way this season. You might get that bounce in St. Louis. You might get that win in Anaheim and put yourself in the playoffs. But is that going to be successful after that? Is that what you want to be your success of the season, just making the dance? I think it, as much as Connery wants to and believes in his veteran group, I think he needs to take a realistic look at what this team actually is. The fortunes they got last year You're counting on Wolf continually taking a step forward. Their regression is very much in the cards for him this year. You're counting on guys like Morgan Frost and Farabee and Sharangovich and all of these other players to continually find their way, progress, and get more goals from these guys. All while hoping Nazem Kadri can hold it together and be the leader of that group and continually score goals every single night. That's a tall task for a 35-year-old guy. And you got to capitalize. There's no better, like you mentioned, Robert, there's no better time to make a move with this guy. His value is not going to get higher. What if we start this season and he has 0 goals for the first 15 games? Well, that value all of a sudden is going away. So make the move now. And not because we hate Kadri, like you mentioned, not because we hate Kadri. I just think there's more value to him being moved than it is to be with the Flames.
Yeah, and like I could totally see a situation here similar to Rasmus Andersson, where 1 or 2 years from now, say the Flames still do have Kadri on the roster, where we're going to look back on it and we're going to go, man, the time to trade him was in the summer of 2025. Because say they do keep him for another couple years, and say Kadri, he goes from being a 30+ goal guy to now he's like more of like a 15 to 20 goal guy, and he puts up 35 to 40 points instead of 60 to 70, and he makes $7 million and he has a no trade protection. It's just like, I just don't see a lot of teams out there who are going to want to make a move for a player in that type of situation. So if Calgary thinks that Kadri can keep up this level of play into his late 30s, then great, and maybe hold on to him, and like you said, let him be a mentor and all that kind of stuff. But it's just, father time does catch up to a lot of guys. The Mark Giordanos of the world are a dime a dozen. I mean, they don't come around very often, right? So I think it makes sense to move on from Kadri. And like I said, I don't really see it happening. And one other reason why I think it makes sense that I just kind of thought about right now is it also opens up a spot for Connor Zary to play center. And yes. I'm big on Zary playing center, like starting as early as this season, because I think you need to figure out what you have in him. And between Backlund, Kadri, and Frost, your 3 center spots are taken in your top 3 lines, and there's no room for Zary there. So moving on from a Michael Backlund or a Nazem Kadri, I do think it makes a lot of sense. Put Connor Zary at center, play the hell out of him there, play him there for 2-3 seasons, see what you got, and if he turns into a middle 6 center, that's great. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. It's kind of like simple as that. So I think there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense for the Flames to move on from Kadri. It'd be tough to let him go just because like he is such a good player. He is easily the most exciting player to watch last season with like all those highlight reel goals he was scoring, all the clutch goals he was scoring. Like, the guy is a stud. Like, he's awesome. And I just think that's the reason why moving on from him makes sense, because I think you could get a lot for him. So yeah, I just think it makes nothing but sense, and we'll see what ends up happening. But my gut tells me that, he's going to be here for at least one more season.
Even if he scores 28 goals next year and say he has like the 32 assists he had this year, you're still looking for 7-8 goals somewhere else. Someone else is going to have to step up there. So even a small regression from Nazem Kadri puts a big problem for the Flames in scoring wise, because this team already struggles to score. We'll see how that all shapes up for the Flames, of course. You mentioned Mr. Connor Zary there, so let's jump to the Connor Zary conversation right now. You mentioned playing him at center. You mentioned how to get him to play at center, and I like all of that. I like that you read pretty much from my notes there, Robert. You said, just play the pants off the guy. Just play him at center, play the pants off him, and see what you have with Connor Zary at the center position. I am all for putting Connor Zary at center. I'm all for moving Michael Backlund down to the 4th line if we need to do that to make that happen for Connor Zary, because you need to figure out what this guy is. What is he at the NHL level? And if you go halfway through this year and you realize he's probably not a center, fine, move him to the wing and adjust on the fly here. But I think it's in the Flames' best interest to figure out if Connor Zary can play center, regardless if they have Kadri and Backlund still in-house. I think you need to make sure that you explore all options for this guy. Do not make the Sam Bennett mistake again. Do not make those mistakes where you don't play a player where you think he can be later down the road. Figure out what he is here. Do you kind of agree with that there? And just almost at any cost, put Connor Zary at center just to figure out what he has.
I think that makes sense. I wrote about it at Flames Nation last week, just saying, kind of like you said, they can't make the same mistakes with Zary that they made with Bennett, and they haven't done that yet. But I think Bennett should be a cautionary tale. Like, the last thing that you want to happen here is, once again, say 3 years down the road, Connor Zary's in a similar position to Bennett, where there's just no room for him on the team. He hasn't carved out a role. He hasn't been given an opportunity, and all of a sudden you have to move on from him, from a valuable asset, from a really good person who's beloved in the locker room, who has potential to be a really good player in this league. And the reason it didn't work out is because you held on to Michael Backlund. You held on to Nazem Kadri. You had to put Morgan Frost in there, and he might work out, he might not, who knows. So I think you just have to find a way to make room for him. Like you said, if it means having 4 good centers, 4 strong, skilled centers down the middle of your lineup, and kind of splitting ice time a little more evenly, then maybe that makes sense. I do see a lot of talk, and you mentioned it there, about Michael Backlund playing 4th line minutes, and I just don't think that's realistic, because who's going to play against the other team's top lines? Like, Morgan Frost certainly isn't. Kadri's not a defensive guy. Zary's not a defensive guy. So, Backlund's still going to need to play his 16 to 19 minutes a night, because the opposing, the opposition's top players are going to be on the ice all game. And Backlund's one of your best penalty killers. He'll be your first out in the PK.
Yep.
So, moving to Backlund to fourth line center doesn't really make sense in that regard. So it's just like
the Flames. The only pushback to that, Robert, I'll give, and I'll give a reason, is how old's Michael Backlund? You have to figure out who's taking that role past Michael Backlund on the Flames. So what if you play Connor Zary those kind of minutes, give Frost some of those minutes, try to develop another center at those minutes. Now, obviously, you still want Backlund to play, and you're still going to have him play. You're still going to have him play big minutes. You're still going to have him on the penalty kill. But why not give some of those minutes to these other guys and see if what you got in these guys? Morgan Frost, people seem to think he's a known quantity. He's not.
No, he's not.
You know more about him than you do Zary, yes, but why can't you coach a guy like Morgan Frost to be a better two-way center? Why can't you coach a guy like Connor Zary to be a two-way center? Nazem Kadri can be more responsible defensively if you ask him to. It's not his forte, of course, but that's my only pushback to Backlund playing 4th line minutes. Why can't you do a bit of both, right? And obviously you're going to need Backlund in the third period when the game gets tighter and you're trying to protect the lead. Of course, Backlund's going to get more minutes because that's what he does for you for years. But why not in first periods and second periods? Hey, Connor Zary, go play against Nathan MacKinnon. This is what it's going to take for you to be a top 6 center. Go play and coach these guys and give these guys the minutes to go out there and try to prove themselves in those roles.
Well, okay, and now what you've just said there is exactly why the direction that Craig Conroy is taking this team, it can be questioned, and why some people don't think that it makes a lot of sense, is because you're prioritizing winning now. And by winning now, I mean you're playing your veteran centers and you're keeping your veteran centers. Mm-hmm. You're prioritizing winning now with those guys over the development of a guy like Connor Zary, because realistically, this team is not going to win a Stanley Cup.
Nope.
So I don't really understand the point in trying to sneak into the 8th seed and losing 4 or 5 games in round 1 to Vegas or Edmonton or whoever it may be. I would rather see them prioritize the development of young players and take advantage of asset management in the sense of Michael Backlund and Nazem Kadri, and just continue to build for the future, because the present right now, it's not looking all that great. Sure, they could sneak in, but what's the upside there? Mm-hmm. I think there's more upside in prioritizing the development of guys like Connor Zary and some younger players in the organization, and building, 2, 3, 4 years from now, building that true contender. So
agreed.
That it's the whole issue with this rebuild / retool / try to make the playoffs / try to be competitive. Like, it literally, I personally don't think it makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people are on Conroy's side with the direction, but this is the issue you run into. And, hopefully Zary finds a role for himself on this team this year. I don't know where exactly that's going to be, but I think he's an important player in the future for this organization. I think the sky is the limit for the guy. Like, I could see him being a 50, 60 point player. I think he's that talented. So hopefully they'll find a way to get the best out of him here.
Yeah, like I love what you said there, Robert. I really do. I like the direction overall what Connery wants to do and why he's doing it, but you don't need 6 big time veterans. You don't need Kadri and Backlund. You don't need both those guys. You don't need Hanley and Pahal. You don't need, like, you're doubling up a lot on your veterans here. Do you really need Lomberg and Klapka and Pospisil? And, like, you got a lot of the same type of players. So why are we, like, this is my biggest beef with the Flames right now, is why are we not trying to develop more? And they always talk about, and we'll get to the forward lines in a minute here, we always talk about there's jobs for these young players to take. But you look at the forward group right now and you tell me which young player is breaking through that? Which young player is breaking through those 13 guys that are there? There's barely anything to be had there. So you have all these prospects you could be working on and giving minutes to that you're not giving anything to. And Connor Zary is part of that group. You could plug him in on the left side of whatever line you want this season and let him be a left winger. That's fine. But if that's your plan for Connor Zary, put him there and let him be a left winger for his career. And that's the direction you go with it. But why are we not trying to figure out what more Connor Zary can bring? Because this guy, for me, he can potentially be a second-line center in this league. That's the skill I see when you play Connor Zary. Develop what you can from the guy. And if he happens to just be a number 3C for a group down the road, so be it. But you just to not put these guys in a position to develop further and to see what they can show you. Matt Coronado is a great example of that last year, right? He was in the minors to start the year. An injury happened, and he slowly moved his way up the pecking order to be one of the best, if not the best, winger on the team last year. The way he was scoring and playing at the end of the season here. Let these guys develop, give these guys roles, and let them show you what they're made of. Because right now, you ask many people, they have Coronado as their first line right winger, and I get why they put them there because of the progression he showed, because he was given the opportunity. Do that more. You don't need 6 big time veterans like the Flames have right now to develop, to have this team. You're asking a lot to go right that went right last year, to sneak in, to have a chance to sneak in, and then just get absolutely just destroyed by whoever comes out on top of the Western Conference. That doesn't sound like fun to me. As much as playoffs are fun, that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Right there with you for sure.
So let's play Connor Zary at center. Play the pants off the guy. And I would say the same thing for Morgan Frost. Put him at that 2C spot and play the pants off of him. You can find minutes for Kadri and Backlund outside of 5-on-5. Those guys are going to get their power play and penalty killing time. See what you've got in these younger players. Like, why wouldn't you? I just don't understand coaches that don't do that. And I like Conroy and I like Husk. I'm not trying to go at them. That's my one beef with this organization is they've done it for years. Develop your younger players, guys, please.
And Conroy's putting Huska in a position where he has to put Kadri, Backlund, Frost down the middle as their first, second, and third line centers, because Ryan Huska's coaching to keep his job in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, having Kadri, Backlund, Frost down the middle as your first 3-line centers gives the Flames the best chance to win hockey games right now.
Agreed.
But I think a lot of fans would agree that maybe winning hockey games next season isn't the biggest priority. It's probably more the development of some of the young players.
It should be, in my opinion. And I'm not on team tank. I'm on team build and develop. Like, draft your skill, build and develop it. And so when you just put your guys down the middle that way, it's going to be the same thing over. I guarantee you we're going to see opening night Huberdeau, Kadri, Coleman, Backlund, and then everyone else will be organized outside of that.
Yeah.
And if Anderson's still here, you're going to see Anderson with Ball, and you're going to see Weegar with whoever, and that'll be your top 2 pairings. It's already set in stone here, and I don't like that. Like, they should be exploring a trade for Nazem Kadri, not because we hate Kadri, but we've already been through that. They should be exploring a trade for Blake Coleman. We love Blake Coleman too, but he has uses elsewhere, and the spot that Blake Coleman's taking up, you could potentially put maybe even, I don't know, Sharangovich there, and he could develop further, whoever it might be. Maybe there is a room for a Rory Cairns to come out here and play on the wing and be a full-time winger in the National Hockey League. Like, you have these veterans, which are great. They're also blocking jobs here, as much as they say that there are jobs for these young kids to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could go on and on and on about that, Robert. We
really
could. We have in the past on other episodes of the show. It's an interesting conversation, and you're never going to have the fan base agree one way or the other, because there are people out there that like watching the Kadris and the Backlunds and all those guys play and pull this team along. Like, it was fun for parts of last season until you realize that they weren't really going to make the playoffs and they're going to lose the draft pick. And you're like, well, this was a no-nothing season, essentially. So you're never going to agree to everything, but I think we can all agree that we're just looking for some exciting Flames hockey here. So let's talk about two guys who we want to bring some exciting Flames hockey into. I asked you this question a few weeks ago, and we've been holding on to it for the podcast, is who has more to prove in your opinion, Robert? Is it Farabee or is it Sharangovich?
I would probably say Sharangovich, and it's mainly off-ice reasons. It's the contract. So, you take a look at it. Yegor Sharangovich is entering the first year of his 5-year extension. He makes $5.75 million a year. And then, you take a look at Joel Farabee. He's got 3 years remaining, making $5 million. So Farabee makes less money. He has less term. And I believe that Farabee's deal is quite a bit more buyout friendly than Sharangovich's. So,
yes,
if things don't work out with Farabee, and hopefully they do, there is always that buyout option. So I think, and another thing too is I believe Sharangovich, he has quite a bit of trade protection right now too, and Farabee doesn't. So for all those reasons, and it's mainly off ice, like I said, contract wise, money wise, trade protection wise, there's a lot more for Yegor Sharangovich to prove. He's going to be counted on as being one of the offensive drivers of this team. Like, you take a look at the forward group, and he's a guy that the Flames are going to need to be, either first, second, or third in goal scoring next year. They need him to be a 25, 30 goal guy. They need him to produce offense. And, if he has another season like he had last year, I think the Flames are in trouble with that deal. I think that deal becomes, a bit of an albatross for the team. And, you don't want that heading into your contention window. You don't want to have $5.75 million not doing a whole heck of a lot. So both players certainly have a lot to prove. I mean, you watch Farabee with the Flames. There wasn't a lot going on there. You watched Sharangovich with the Flames last year. I thought he really, really struggled, and especially when it comes to like the intensity and the battle part of the game, I thought he really, really struggled there. So certainly both have a lot to prove, but just because of the whole contract situation, I think it is Yegor Sharangovich that needs to step up, and he's got a little bit more to prove than Joel Farabee.
I'm with you. The Flames invested in Sharangovich. They inherited the contract of Farabee. They went out and found Sharangovich and brought him in for the specific purpose, and they need him to live up to that purpose. He was great his first season in Calgary. Like, he played really, really well, earned a contract, good on the guy. Now you need to go out there and show why we gave you that contract. This is a guy who should be playing top line minutes with Huberdeau. He should be that trigger man. Everyone was clamoring for Anthony Duclair for all those years for some reason, because he had that 1 year with Huberdeau in Florida. That should have been Sharangovich in Calgary. It still can be him, and I think that's why I hold such high expectations for the players, because you see the ability. You see the ability to get that shot off, the way that he can play, the way that he can be an offensive dynamo for this guy. We talk about Kadri's game, maybe it falls off. Where do those goals come from? Hello, Sharangovich. You're the guy. This is a guy that needs to step up on ice to show that he is closer to that 30-goal scorer than, closer to the 20-goal scorer. He's a guy that you need to see a lot more production out of all around in his game as well. And with Farabee, he's a fine player, but he feels to me like he was a throw-in in that trade to make it work, right? To make the money work. And while he has things to prove, I think it's definitely on Sharangovich to show what he's made of, what he brings to the table here, because that's, like you mentioned, the contract. Like, if he has another season like he did last year, I would tend to say that his contract is more of an albatross than the Huberdeau contract is an albatross to the Calgary Flames. Based on
I don't know about that.
It's in the same realm. It's got to be in the same realm, right? Because you're paying a lot of money to guys.
He makes double what Sharangovich is making.
Yes, but you could also argue that Huberdeau's bringing something to the table.
Fair.
Like last year, Sharangovich wasn't bringing anything to the table. At least Huberdeau was bringing something to the table. So if you're not going to bring anything to the table, your contract's an albatross. It's just it's awful, and it's a bad contract. At least with Huberdeau, like, yes, he wasn't giving the assists and those highlight reel passes, but he was still driving the power play stuff. He was still scoring goals. He was still doing a few things that you liked and could almost bank on every single game. Sharangovich, you didn't know what was happening period to period with that guy. So I I just really want to see more out of Sharangovich.
And I actually think we will see more out of both players, because I really believe in, I don't think anyone's come out and said this specifically about Farabee, but like I know Conroy had mentioned that Sharangovich was basically dealing with injuries the entire season. And then with Farabee, I remember, I think it was the Carolina game, like when they were in Carolina, he blocked a shot with his hand, and it looked like he sustained like a, I wouldn't call it significant injury, but an injury that's going to get in the way of him being the player that he can be. So, with both guys coming into training camp fully healthy, I definitely expect a lot more from both of them. But I do think it's Sharangovich that probably needs to step up more than Farabee does, because I think for Farabee, like if you can get him to be a 18 to 22 goal guy and play on the penalty kill and play in the second power play unit and turn into a responsible player, I think you'd be happy with that. But with Sharangovich, I think because he doesn't bring really a whole heck of a lot to the game outside of goal scoring, you need him to be a 25-30 goal guy. Like you need him to be a dangerous shooter out there. And I think Farabee has the potential to bring more to the table outside of goal scoring. So more the reason why I think Sharangovich has to step up this year and show that he is that kind of $5.75 million player.
Yeah, good points. Good points there. Robert, where does Martin Pospisil fit for you in this lineup?
Where does he fit? I mean,
what is he?
So this is just my opinion. People might not like this because I know there are a lot of Martin Pospisil fans out there, but I think he is an excellent fourth line player. I think if Martin Pospisil is on your fourth line, you are very happy. And like his style of play is conducive to a fourth line. Like he's not a goal scorer at all. I think he scored 12 goals over the last 2 years. And that's totally fine, because the best part of Pospisil's game is being a shit disturber, using his speed on the forecheck, using his physicality on the forecheck to create chaos, being incredibly physical, being one of those players where you have to keep your head on a swivel when you're on the ice when he's out there as well. And I think all those qualities make him a really, really good fourth line player. I don't think he should be playing in the top 9, especially when you take a look at the Flames roster right now, the way it's constructed. He doesn't have the offensive upside to be, one of those players. So in my opinion, I think he should stay on the fourth line. I think him and Lomberg, along with the Kirkland or Klapka or Zary, if you want to put Zary at center, I think those two on the same line could bring a lot of energy, a lot of toughness, a lot of physicality, and create some chaos out there. So I think they've been kind of forcing Martin Pospisil into positions where he's just not quite up for it. Like on a top line with Kadri and Huberdeau. Like I just don't think he's good enough for that. So, but I do think he's a perfect fourth line player, and I think he's one of those players that you win with. I think if you look at championship teams, they all have shit disturbers. They all have super physical players. They all have guys that get under opponents' skin, and Pospisil is that guy. And those guys are a rare breed in the NHL these days. So I think he's an important player on the Flames. There's talk like, hey, do you throw him into a trade package to bring in a bigger player? I would not do that. So yeah, that's kind of where I think he fits on this team, is just really good fourth line player. Take advantage of his skills and give him a role. And let him go thrive in that role. That's kind of the way I'm seeing it. How about you?
I love that you used the word role there, because for me, Martin Pospisil is better when the game's simpler. When he plays the simple game, he's a much more effective player. And what is a simple game? A fourth line role. You're given one specific job and you go out and you do it. And I think that's where Martin Pospisil brings everything you just mentioned about the player, brings to the table. Go out there on a fourth line with a Ryan Lomberg, and you two just disturb everything. Be disruptive on everything. Be a massive pain in the butt to everybody. We saw the Florida Panthers roll out Nosek and Gadjevich on a fourth line, and that's exactly what they did. They didn't do anything flashy. Nothing was big. It wasn't even big hits. It was just disruption. It was just being a pain in the butt. It was just being a fly on a hunk of poop. Like it's just relentless. Like they were just there, and that's what you need Pospisil to do, and that's what he's best at. When he can be a relentless player, he brings a lot to the table. And yeah, every so often he's gonna pot a goal or two for you, and it's just extra on top of everything else that you get from Marty Pospisil. I think he's perfect for that fourth line role, that disruption role, and I think he's got a good winger to do that with in Ryan Lomberg, and heck, even Kirkland can do that type of work as well. Like that would be a perfect spot for me for a guy like Martin Pospisil, because like you mentioned, he's okay in short stints beside a Nazem Kadri, but it fades quickly. If you put too much on the plate, he just doesn't seem to have the ability to do those kind of things and continue to play his game. Put him in a spot where he's going to play his game, do his role, and be very effective at it. And there's nothing wrong with putting a guy there that can be successful at. We talk about coaches putting guys in a spot to be successful. For me, perfect. Martin Pospisil, go play alongside Ryan Lomberg, and you two just go disrupt the National Hockey League and have fun doing it.
Yeah, I mean, straight up, he doesn't have the skill or the kind of the offensive vision or offensive kind of hockey IQ to be a top six forward in the NHL. And you know what? That's totally fine. Yeah, because there's not many guys that do have that ability. And you know, for Pospisil for him to maximize his value, I really think he's just got to continue to just be that physical force, that physical presence, continue to piss people off. That's when he's at his best. And I think playing on the fourth line would allow him to do that more than playing on a top line, you know, and he can go out, he can play against lower quality of competition, and maybe he can, you know, take advantage of that offensively instead of having to play against other teams' top D pairings and top defensive forward lines. Mm-hmm. I think playing lower down the lineup would be a better place for him. And I certainly think he's an everyday NHLer, 100%. He should play all 82 games. I think he's, like I said, I think he's a really valuable player to the Calgary Flames. These guys are extremely rare. Hold on to him, you know, embrace him for who he is, give him that role, and, you know, watch him flourish as that fourth line player. I think that's the best place for him personally.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Let's build our forward lines, Robert. Why don't we just build our forward lines here? Let's kick off. Let's see what you've got here. Let's see if you hold to your word and you have Pospisil on the fourth line. Where else have you got going on here for your top lines here?
So I had a little bit of a hard time with this because of that Connor Zary conversation we just had.
I was just about to mention that too. Yeah,
you know, like I really want Zary to play center. But, you know, when you put together lines and you have him playing center, he's probably the odd man out. He's probably the one on a quote-unquote fourth line. And he's probably playing alongside a guy like Lomberg and Pospisil. And, you know, they're not going to get a lot of ice time together. So they're kind of just going back to the Zary conversation a little bit. Mm-hmm. I got to think next summer, whether it's Michael Backlund or Nazem Kadri, one or both of them might not be with the team for the 26-27 season. So you can always play Zary at center next year. I wish that they could get him there sooner, but, you know, just because of the situation they're in, you know, Zary playing on the wing this year probably makes the most sense unless they end up moving one of those guys or one of those guys gets hurt. So with that in mind, I will put Zary on the wing, even though I don't want to, but I will put him there. So I'll go the top line. Why don't we kind of go like top line, like first, second, third, fourth line. Like I'll do mine, then you do yours.
Sure.
So my top line right now is Huberdeau, Kadri, and Zary. I think the Huberdeau Kadri combo it worked last year to a certain extent. I thought they showed, you know, a little bit more chemistry than they have in the past, and then just adding a talented guy like Zary who can get the puck to guys like Kadri and Huberdeau, I think would be a good fit for those two.
Yeah, see, I approach this with two trains of thought. What I would do to force Zary to center, so I have that line as well, and I have what I think the Flames are going to do. So I think what you just said is exactly what the Flames are going to do with Connor Zary on the right side of those two guys. They've showed chemistry in the past. They've been good in the past. If it was me and I'm trying to force Connor Zary to center, I would put Coronado with those two guys. Have your three offensive dynamos go to town, try to make a bunch of havoc and create a bunch of points in offense for this Flames team, a team that's probably going to struggle to score again. Put your best passer with your best scorer and go to town with those guys. So I would put Coronado with those two guys, keeping in mind we're trying to put Connor Zary at center.
That's totally fair. The one thing I'd push back on is this is just me personally. I don't think Coronado is a good fit for Nazem Kadri.
Okay.
Like when you watch Nazem Kadri, like this is a guy who just loves to have the puck on his stick. He wants people to feed him the puck. He loves shooting. Like he'll shoot from anywhere. He's the kind of guy that enters the zone with speed and possession, and he doesn't like to give it up all that much. Like, and that's fine. Like I think that's what makes him a really good player.
Yep. Been successful
and then
that way.
Yeah. So when you have that type of player on a line with your best shooter, I would almost rather see Coronado play with more of a distributor or more of a guy that would lean towards passing the puck to Coronado to give him opportunities rather than Kadri, a guy like Kadri who's more of a, I'm going to hold on to the puck and I'm going to make plays. So that's kind of my only pushback on that. But the idea of putting your three top forwards together makes sense. And it worked when you had, Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Lindholm. So, and, it's worked throughout the league and in other situations too. So I could see it working, and I could also see him and Kadri just not having great chemistry as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, line 2. Where are you going to win there, Robert?
So I'll go Coleman, Backlund, Coronado. I thought that trio was excellent last year. They put up some of the best analytics in the NHL. Coleman and Backlund are both super smart veteran presence that can kind of help Coronado develop his 200-foot game, which I really like. And both those players, Coleman and Backlund, I think that they would probably look to give the puck to Coronado more than a Kadri and Huberdeau would, just because, Coronado's shot is substantially better than both Coleman and Backlund. So, I'll say that'll be my second line as of July 21st.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's where the Flames go as well, because that did work well from last year. But again, trying to push Connor Zary to center. Yep. I'm going to break up the Coleman Backlund thing. And I know Coleman's not always effective without Michael Backlund, but I think with Morgan Frost, he could find something. So I have Coleman, Frost, and Farabee together, hopefully that the leadership of Coleman can pull Farabee along a little bit and that Frost and Coleman can maybe develop something there. Again, going with the idea of you want Connor Zary at center, you're trying to find guys to take over some of the Michael Backlund role. Can Frost bring a little bit more to the table? That's kind of where I'm seeing here with this line. Give them a little bit more minutes, see if you can form something there, see what that line can bring you. And these guys have been known to be offensive as well. Farabee and Frost can score. Coleman's been a 20-goal scorer. Can you get a little bit more to that from Blake Coleman as well? So it's a bit of a try line. See if you can try to get something out of it. But I think there could be something between those three guys.
I like that. And then the number one thing I like about that is having Coleman and Farabee play together, because
yes,
I really think that if Joel Farabee, if he wants to carve out, an additional 10 years in the NHL in his career, I think he should just watch Blake Coleman and just be like, okay, I need to be him. I need to work as hard as him. I need to be as good defensively as him. And Farabee, he's a more talented player than Coleman is. Like, Coleman's not the most skilled guy in the world, but he's just so smart and he works so hard. And he puts himself in so many good positions that he can produce offense.
Yep.
And I think if Farabee can kind of take on the Blake Coleman role, I think that would be a huge, huge win for the Calgary Flames. And I think that it would actually extend Farabee's career by a considerable amount. If he becomes a Blake Coleman type of player, he can play in the league till he's 35, 36, 37 easily. But if Farabee thinks that he can be a first line forward and be a pure offensive guy, I think he's in trouble.
If he thinks he's going to be that, then he's going to find himself on a team like Chicago real quick, because that's where those kind of players play. I'm with you on the Farabee there. I think he can learn a lot from Blake Coleman. I think Blake Coleman, being one of those veterans that the Flames absolutely love to lean on, can be just a really good veteran presence for both of those guys. And I think familiarity between Frost and Farabee might help as well. Both those guys continually settle in Calgary after being moved here last season. Just for me, it's definitely you're taking a chance line, but that's how you learn what you've got with these guys here.
Yeah.
All right, where are we going for line 3?
Okay, so my line 3 would be Farabee, Frost, and Sharangovich. And this is the prove it line. This is 3 guys who you just have no idea what the hell you're going to get from them. There are 3 guys that have to bounce back. If the Calgary Flames can get the potential out of Farabee, Frost, and Sharangovich that a lot of people think they can, this completely changes the dynamic of the team.
Mhm.
If say Sharangovich, Frost, Farabee, if they play like they did last season and produce like they did last season, the Calgary Flames will not make the playoffs. They won't even come close to making the playoffs.
Yeah.
They really won't. If the Flames do want to be that competitive team that gets in like the 7 or 8 seed, Farabee's got to be a 20-goal guy. Frost has got to be a 40, 50-point guy. Sharangovich has to be a 25, 50-point guy. And if those three step up and can do that for the Flames, they'll have a legit shot to make the playoffs. If those three don't, they're screwed. So put them all in a line together and see what they can do.
The Frost with Sharangovich does scare me a little bit, but I absolutely like your logic behind it. And I think if the Flames go that way, that is a here you go, guys. Here's your minutes. Now go prove to us why we should keep you around, why you should be a member of this team, what you bring to the table. We got to remember there are younger players trying to sniff for jobs here, and they're not fourth line players sniffing for jobs. Like a Suniev's not playing fourth line minutes. A Stromgren's not going to play fourth line minutes for this team. They're going to be coming for those jobs, and those are the guys in danger, I would, in my opinion, of losing a job. And so go out there and show what you've got together here. In my trying to get Connor Zary to center project, this is almost a line of who is left based on who we know is going to be a fourth line player. But I really think that Connor Zary at center of this third line could really try to emulate a lot of what Nazem Kadri does. He can play make, he can drive a line, and he can do what Kadri does for the Flames on the first line, on the third line. Bring a bit of offense here. So I have Connor Zary centering Sharangovich and Klapka. I think Klapka could provide a little bit of insurance for that line, a little bit of size to that line, a guy who can go to the net and help these guys out. And I think Sharangovich can be a good winger for a guy like Connor Zary, and allow Connor Zary to try to use his speed, his skill to set up Sharangovich for some goals here. We'll see. I don't know, on paper, that line might look a little bit weak to some folks, but I think there could be something there, especially if Connor Zary can find the center position and find his role as a centerman with this roster.
Man, it's going to be so fascinating to see what the heck Adam Klapka is.
Yeah.
Like, if he can be similar to the guy that we saw at the end of last season, where I think he had like 8 points in his last 10 games and had some really good chemistry with Nazem Kadri. You could have a really exciting player in your hands, but then there's also the Adam Klapka who's like very inconsistent. And yeah, you just one of many guys on this Calgary Flames team where you just don't really know what you're going to get.
100%.
And it's going to be fascinating to see what he looks like.
I just think if you put him on a line with two guys that are going to skate, and both Zary and Sharangovich can skate, it might force him to stay in the play more. It might force him to play, that forward game, go north-south rather than east-west. Big man, go to the net. You were rewarded playing with Nazem Kadri that way, just going to the net. And he's got good hands for a big guy. He's got good boots for a big guy. Let's see if he can put it together, though, over the course of a longer season. Because if he doesn't work on that line, then we're looking at trying to put someone out of position a little bit here, or pushing Zary back to the wing.
Yeah, and I don't mind the idea of him playing with more skilled players, because like you said, I think it would force him to forecheck a lot more. It would force him to be a lot more physical. It would force him to go to the net more. Mm-hmm. So I like that idea, and I could totally see that happening. I could absolutely see Klapka starting in the top 9 of this Flames team.
I found him to be a lot more engaged playing with the skill players of Huberdeau and Kadri than he was playing with the Lombergs and the Pospils on the bottom part of the roster. I found that the last few games of the season, he was really engaged playing with those offensive guys. And so that's kind of where my mind went when I was trying to do these lines here. Zary's got a lot of good skill in him. Let's put him with some skill and see what he can provide us here.
I like it.
Process of elimination. We can pretty much guess everyone's fourth lines here, but who do you have on your fourth line here, Robert?
I love this fourth line. I think this fourth line would be so much fun to watch. And mine is Ryan Lomberg, Martin Pospisil at center, and Adam Klapka on the right.
Whew.
Like that. Imagine playing against that line.
A lot of piss and vinegar.
Oh, man. Like, imagine being like the third pairing on the opposing team, having to face a forecheck with Lomberg, Pospisil, and Klapka all night. Like that just sounds like a complete nightmare to me. Mm-hmm. So I love it. I love the Lomberg speed, physicality, energy. I love Pospisil's, same thing. I love the physicality. I love the speed. I love the forechecking. And then Klapka, he can do a little bit of it all. He can bring a little bit of skill to the line, but he also can be an intimidating force and a big time physical presence. It's just a line that you just do not want to play against. It's a line you don't want to mess with. So I love that idea of those three together.
That line's going to make you work.
Oh yeah,
I like that a lot, and I think the Flames go that direction. I honestly really do. And add Kirkland in the mix as a 13th forward. That's a really good quadruple or quad players to have there. In my quest to put Connor Zary at center, I have to maintain this. I hate putting him here. I hate putting him on the fourth line, but somebody has to fall to the fourth line center role. So Michael Backlund's going to be my fourth line center here. He's going to get his PK time, his power play time, and help get his minutes up that way. Put him between Lomberg and Pospisil. I think Lomberg, Pospisil, we've talked about that before in the show here. They're just going to go out there and crash and bang and be disruptive. And I think Michael Backlund can really do a lot of stabilization of that roster. He can still be a defensive player on that line. He can still help those guys play a ton, and I think he can be a bit more of a disturber than people think he can be. It does pay me to put him down that low in the roster, in the rotation. But if you're going to try to get Connor Zary at center, someone has to fall there. So that's where I would go, just based on process of elimination as well there. So that's
totally fair.
Is Kirkland your automatic 13th forward, Robert?
Yeah. I would say he's pretty much locked into place as number 13.
Yeah, me too. Those are fun rosters. That's a fun exercise to try to do, is put together lines based on what you think's going to happen, what you've seen happen. I think we really are going to see Coleman, Backlund all season again. We're going to see Huberdeau, Kadri, but I wanted to go on the quest of putting Connor Zary at center, seeing what that would look like, seeing how that flushed out the rest of the roster. And for me, it came out with some pretty interesting lines. Now, people in the comments are probably going to hate on me for some of it, but that's okay. That's part of the process. That's part of the exercise and why we did it, because that's really fun.
I think there's a large portion of the diehard fan base, you know, guys like us, that want to see Michael Backlund as the fourth line center. So I bet you'll get a lot of positive comments for making that happen.
And see, I come at the position as well as I don't hate Backlund. He has slowed down, yes. I love what Backlund brings. I think he's a good captain, despite the hate he gets on Twitter for the way he captains the team. He's more of a do as I do type of guy rather than a rah-rah guy. But he's a great player. He's a great leader. He's tremendous in the community. He's a long-term Flame. He knows what it takes to be in Calgary. He knows what it means to be a Flame. And that's very valuable to the overall picture of your organization. So this comes to me nothing more than based on elimination of where everyone else puts in your lineup. Michael Backlund is a great player, and he brings a lot to the table still. Even if he's not as fast as he used to be or not as quick as he used to be, he's still a really good hockey player. So I'm not negative on Michael Backlund at all, like some others are. It's just on the fourth line, I think he still can provide you a hell of a lot in a lineup.
Yeah, he totally could. It just like we talked about earlier, realistically, Ryan Huska's not going to do that.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Backlund's by far and away your best defensive center. Ryan Huska is going to use him in the exact same role that he's used him, over the last 10 years in Calgary. So I like the idea. I love the thought process behind it, but I think if we're talking about like what Ryan Huska is going to do, I think it's probably pretty obvious that Backlund's going to be back with, like you said, with 100%. Blake Coleman, and they'll be getting the tough matchups and first PK and all that kind of stuff.
I am fully prepared for the season to start, and the only thing I nailed was the Huberdeau Kadri combination. I'm fully prepared for it, because that's what we've seen in the past. Like, that's what Huska's done, and that's what he's going to continue to do. And I think it's good. I just want to undertake the extra. You got to get Connor Zary at center. I'm pretty bullish on trying to get your young kids into the lineup and into spots where they can be successful. And what do we have here with these guys? And we talked about these young players and having a chance to crack the lineup. We just went through this entire lineup, Robert. We listed 13 forwards, with Connor Zary being being the youngest player at like 24. Where do these young players fit, Robert? Where do these jobs come from for these young guys? And which young guys do have an opportunity here to break through? Because I look at it and I see there's 13 jobs already taken in the forward group. And no matter who you are in the Wranglers or in your junior team, I don't see a spot for a kid to steal a job. Do you?
No, definitely not. I really don't, unless there's injury or a trade. And I don't, you hope injuries don't happen. I don't really foresee a trade happening. So I don't see any spots for them at all. And I think what Craig Conroy would probably tell you is that, you know, you take a look at the NHL lineup in age is relative, like what's young in the NHL these days. But I think he would say, you know, Connor Zary is a young player. Matt Coronado is a young player. Frost, Farabee, Sharangovich, Pospisil, Klapka. These guys are all, you know, 25 and 26 years of age or younger. And I think he would say that's a lot of youth in our lineup in the forward group. So, you know, there are young players in the lineup, to be sure, but it's your own guys. It's the guys you've drafted. It's the guys that you've been developing at the AHL. There really is not a single spot for them. Like, you know, a guy like Honzek is going to have another insane training camp like he did last year. Rory Cairns is going to have to put up like over a point per game in training camp in the preseason in order to even like get considered as a potential opening night lineup guy. So, you know, like I'm taking a look at the list here. Like, yeah, you got Rory Cairns, you got William Stromgren, Sam Honzek, Idar Suniev, Sam Wharton, Andrew Basha, Matt Vegridin. Those are kind of the young guys we're talking about. I don't see any of them. I don't see them getting a spot in the NHL to at least start the season, unless, like I said, unless there's injuries. Like, is there one guy out on that list that you could see stepping up and making the opening night lineup?
Well, he did it last year, so I would say Honzek, but at the same time, is Honzek in a fourth line role really what you want? Like, what do you want Honzek to be? And they keep trying to put Honzek at center in the American Hockey League. So what is Honzek? So
they got to figure that out in the AHL.
Yeah, and so that's exactly where I was going to go with that. That's an AHL situation. And then you look at these other guys. You watch Suniev play a game. He wasn't all that great. I've liked Stromgren, but I don't know if he's ready for the jump. I'm not on the Rory Cairns train like a lot of other folks are. I think he's a great AHL player, a guy who might get some time in the NHL, but I don't see him as this I'm going to steal your job type of guy. I don't see a prospect coming into this forward group breaking through without, like you mentioned, a lot of injuries or a trade to make room for them. And it's interesting because the FlamesNation.ca put out a tweet about how does this forward group look, and all I could say was rinse and repeat from last year, right? Because that's all it was. But at the same time, that's all you have as well. You don't have these guys that are going to break through. I see the jobs on the back end, and we've talked about the defense before, where there are guys who could come through and break through back there. But forward group wise, I just don't see it. Even if Honzek has a really good camp, what is Honzek at the NHL level? Where is he going to play at the NHL level? And if you're going to try him at center, well, that's an AHL, like we mentioned, an AHL problem. Like figure that out down there. So I'm with you there, Robert. I just don't see the jobs. I just don't see them.
No, and you know, I was on the Rory Cairns trade last year because of the production he put up in his limited time, and because the Flames had such a difficult time scoring goals. So I was definitely on the Rory Cairns train like during the season, but I'm with you. I don't see him necessarily as an everyday top 9 NHL player, and I don't see him as a fourth liner. You know, like you said, he's kind of the guy that could fill in if there's injuries or, like I just don't really see him there. And like Stromgren, I watched a lot of William Stromgren, and I'll be totally honest, I haven't seen NHL potential there yet. There are times when he shows like flashes of brilliance. You know, I think of the playoffs a couple years ago, the AHL playoffs, when the Wranglers played the Tucson Roadrunners, and he was arguably their best forward, but it was like a 3-game sample size. But like I watched him probably 7-8 times in the American League last year, and just he never stood out to me. Like I find when you watch the AHL, like there's guys where you're like, okay, like this guy's clearly got NHL upside. Like you can just tell by the playmaking, the smarts.
Yeah. I
just don't necessarily see that with him. So, you know, and then Sam Honzek, like there's a big discussion we had about this guy. Like since Sam Honzek was drafted by the Calgary Flames, the only time that he's shown that there's like big time NHL potential there was in the preseason.
Yep.
And keep in mind, he's playing against B squads. He's playing against NHL veterans that really don't give a shit. And, you know, he's playing up in the Flames lineup in those games. And yeah, he played really well in about 5 preseason games. He was excellent in those preseason games. But outside of that, he hasn't done anything. So I think it's super important to give him a defined role in the American Hockey League. Say you're going to be a second line winger. You're going to be on the first penalty kill unit, and you're going to play on the power play. And like that's the kind of the role we want you to play in the NHL. We want you to be a good defensive forward. And once again, be kind of like a Blake Coleman. Be that player. So put him in the AHL, give him that role, and let him develop into that player. I think the days of thinking Sam Honzek is going to be like a top line NHL player, maybe even top 6 NHL player, I think are gone. But I still think he can be an effective NHL player for sure. Like I said, like a Blake Coleman. If Honzek could be a 18 to 20 goal guy and play good defense, have a good 200-foot game, play on the penalty kill, and use his size to his advantage, he could be an extremely valuable NHL player. But I think they got to be patient with him. They got to play him in the American League. Got to give him that role and just let him develop. Don't rush him. Don't rush him to the NHL. Like, I actually think that hurt his season. I think that playing NHL regular season games, he was in over his head, and he ended up taking that one of the biggest hits I've ever seen in my entire life from Connor Murphy of the Chicago Blackhawks, and that derailed his season. I don't think he was ever able to recover from that. So he's not even a consideration for the NHL this year for me. I think he should be in the AHL all season long, and there's nothing wrong with that because he's 20 years old.
The preseason for me is one of the worst evaluating tools out there.
Oh, is it ever?
People can come at me all they want on that, but that's one of the takes that I always take to I'll take to the grave. Is I think the preseason is one of the worst times to evaluate things. Preseason for me is the time you guys get their legs underneath them. Let them get their sticks underneath them. Let them get their minds back into hockey. That's what the preseason is for. It's not to evaluate. If you're using preseasons to evaluate, good luck, because you're never going to get the same players in the same situations against similar opponents. It just doesn't happen that way based on who else plays against you. And given Honzek's age, given where he's at in his development, given the injury history that he's had thus far in his career and in his junior career, I think this guy's about a year and a half behind what actual development he should be having. So playing this guy, and I'm not like a lot of folks on Twitter who are ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. He's still a young player. Forget where he was drafted. That's gone. You can't change that. What you can change is how you develop this player and put him in a position to be successful. So for me, that is the American Hockey League. Decide right now if you want him wing or center. Don't do this flip-flop back and forth they're doing with Connor Zary, that they did with Sam Bennett, that they've done with multiple other guys. Decide what you want him to be at the NHL level, and then just let him play every minute of every game at that position in the American Hockey League and develop his skills. He's going to go play with the Wranglers with a guy who had a very similar career to that. Sutter was a guy who could play center and wing in junior and into the American Hockey League when he first came. So he knows what it takes to play at that level, to play good AHL minutes and to develop players. So he's a great coach for a guy like Honzek right now. Let the guy play. And lean on him to be your top power play guys. Lean on him to be a guy out there when you need a goal in the final 2 minutes of a game. Let him be a guy out there trying to defend when you're up a goal with a minute to go. Let him be all of those things for you. I'm with you. I don't see him in the National Hockey League next season, and that's okay because he's missed all this development time. And to say, well, this guy in his draft class has already played and scored this many goals. Yeah, but that guy also hasn't missed an entire season with injuries. So it's not really fair comparison at this present time. Let him develop, let him catch up here, and then maybe he is a guy that comes in next year and he steals a job. Maybe he's the guy that replaces Blake Coleman if they move him out next year. Maybe he's the guy that says, okay, no, Connor Zary's the winger, I'm the center, and he has that role. Who knows what he can be down the road? But for right now, no need to rush this guy. No need to pencil him into that fourth line role. No need to say he has to be in our top 6 next year. Knock that nonsense off. Let's develop this guy at the American Hockey League level. He's not going to be this elite of the elite, going to score you 50 goals type of guy. There's nothing wrong with him developing into a third line player for the Flames down the road here. And yes, you go back to that draft that could have had other skill. I tweeted that a long time ago myself, but it is what it is. And right now you got to get the best out of this player. For me, that's the American Hockey League.
100%. And even if he spends the next 2, maybe even 3 years in the American Hockey League,
yeah, he's only 20.
I'm more than okay with that. Because, yeah, if he can become an NHL player at 23, 24 years old, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it takes guys longer to develop. And like you just mentioned, literally every single year since he's been drafted by the Flames, he's dealt with injuries. So let him kind of find his game in the American League. Let him get healthy for a couple years in a row. And then you can kind of start to see what he can be in the NHL level. And pretty soon the Calgary Flames NHL roster, they're going to start to have guys aging out or their contracts are going to be expiring. Like, you take a look at like Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund, Joel Farabee's only signed for another 3 years. Frost is only signed for 2 years. Martin Pospisil, who knows what ends up happening with him? He's only got 1 year left on his deal. Who knows what Adam Klapka is going to be long term? Like, over the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a lot of openings on this Flames roster for some of their younger players to step up and take spots. And Honzek will just be in that group with your Griddens and your Bashas and Battaglias of the world. And, Potter and Reshny, like he'll be in the mix just with all those other guys. And, that's totally fine. So I'm cheering for the guy. I hope things work out. You always want to see first round picks excel.
Mm-hmm.
And, it might just take a little bit more time than people had originally expected. So, and like you said, you can't dwell on where he was picked. Like you said, the past is the past. It's time to move on from that. You can certainly criticize the pick from a Flames perspective and a scouting perspective,
100%.
but
100%.
But when evaluating the player himself over the next couple of years here, I think you just got to throw that away. So, yeah, hopefully they take their time with Honzek and just realize that he needs to get healthy and he needs to spend a couple years in the AHL. Who cares? Just make sure that you develop him properly.
Yeah, it's all for development for me. It really, really comes down to development for me. We could dwell on where everyone was draft picked, right? You could like Michael Backlund was an 11th overall pick. Where's he playing right now? Well, he's your second best center on this roster right now, and he didn't come into the league at 18 years old. He tried. He wasn't very good. And it just took a couple years to develop. But once he developed, he became a very useful and good player for the Calgary Flames. Honzek could be very similar to that, where he just takes a couple seasons, but once he gets here, he's going to be a very steady player for us. I like Honzek. I really do. I think he's a great hockey player. He's just not an elite of the elite guy, and that's okay. That really is okay.
He's got all the physical tools in the world to be a good player.
He's got a great size to him.
Like he's built like a truck. I think Craig Conroy and some of the development staff, they commented on his fitness testing, like his VO2 test. Like I guess like his lung capacity is insane, his leg strength is insane. Like he's got all these like amazing physical tools that he needs to use to his advantage, and it just, like I said, just might take a little bit of time.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it. Robert, this has been an incredible chat of the Flames forward group. Anything else to add here before we wrap up? If not, tell these folks what's coming up from you on Flames Nation and where they can find you.
No, I think we covered a lot of bases there on the forward group. It's basically the exact same team that they finished last season with, and in the final 20 games of last year, they literally were I think they were the fourth best team in the NHL from a points percentage perspective. So, can this forward group continue to take some of that magic that they gained at the end of last season and bring it into next season, or did they just kind of catch lightning in a bottle in those final 20 games? It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. But the potential is there for the forward group. Like if everything goes right, and I mean, you could say this almost for any team in the NHL, but like if more things go right than go wrong when it comes to this forward group, I mean, there's the potential for them to be, in that kind of, let's call it 16 through 22 in terms of league scoring. Like they could be kind of hovering up at the top of the bottom half of the league. So it'll be there's lots of interesting things to watch as we head into training camp here pretty soon.
The speakings of mediocrity again.
Yeah,
it really does feel like a rinse and repeat for the forward group. If they can get a couple guys like Sharangovich or Farabee stepping up and giving production, if they can get Nazem Kadri close to that 35 goals again, if they continually have Backlund and Coleman produce both ends of the ice, this forward group could be enough to pull this team along to be close to that playoff spot. The goal that, not what Robert and I want, but the goal that the Flames have is that playoff spot. The potential is there for it. I also see the potential that it goes the absolute other direction, and we're talking about a long slug of a season. It'll be interesting to see which way it plays out here for the Flames, but there's a lot of guys that we need a lot from, and a lot of guys with a lot to prove here. And hopefully Connor Zary signs that contract soon so he can hit the ground running after his injuries from last year as well.
Yeah, you just kind of have to hope that the Conroy plan or the Con plan, whatever you want to call it, that he and the management team know what they're doing, and that all the skill that they've been drafting in the last couple of years here is going to pay off long term, and they're going to find some diamonds in the rough, and hopefully the quote unquote playing competitive games in March and April is going to really benefit the young players. It'd be interesting to hear from like player development or the coaching staff or the players themselves, really. Like how much of an impact does that make on you as a 21 to 26-year-old player? So yeah, you just hope that they know what they're doing. You hope that it all works out, and that, you know, by the time the new building rolls around here, that they can start to really push and be a consistent playoff team. That's the ultimate goal for these guys, right?
I love it. The con plan sounds like a villain in a James Bond movie or something, right? Mr. Bond, you must stop the con plan. You can find Robert Munich at Ring of Fire at CGY on Twitter. I am Vintage Johnny 84 across your social media platforms as well. Of course, find the show at Red Mile Rundown wherever you like to do your posting at. And thanks so much for the summer likes and follows. I'm actually blown away by the numbers we've got in the last little while from our show, Robert, during the summertime. People still like talking Flames. We'll come back at you in 2 weeks, I think is the plan, Robert. 2 weeks. We'll come back with another episode. We'll talk more about the Flames always. Thanks again. Enjoy the summer while we still have it, because the weather is nice. And we'll see you next time here on the Red Mile Rundown.